Hello and welcome to Functions 1.3, Function Notation Revisited. Okay, so in this one, it's going to get kind of tricky. So hopefully the notes I made on each of these slides hopefully help to make sense of what's going to happen. So all these things in blue, you might want to add it to your paper. So you might want to pause this video a lot so that you can actually look at what's in blue. Yeah, and add it to your notes. Otherwise, yeah, you're gonna have to write kind of fast and you're gonna miss some stuff. So yeah, like I said, good thing this is a video. You can stop, you can rewind, you can do whatever you need so that you can get this section fully understood, because it's gonna pretty much revolve around two different types of problems. One where you're gonna write symbolic representation, and the other problem where it's gonna be where you write word representation. Yeah, so it's going to get kind of tricky, so good luck. Okay, so in this problem we're going to be talking about advertising, which is kind of like promoting your product or your company or your service. And the more you advertise, the trend is pretty much the more you advertise, the more money you make, because your company, your brand, your product, whatever you're trying to sell, is known by more people, so they tend to buy it more because they might like what they see. Okay, so that's pretty much what this problem is going to center around, that type of scenario. Okay, and we're going to do our advertising on a local radio station, which doesn't really match the generation that's coming up now, because usually when you guys see ads, you see it on your feed, right? Your Instagram, your social media. So yeah, maybe we might have to change this problem one day in the future and change it from advertising from a local radio station to advertising on Instagram or something like that. Okay, so basically what we're going to have is I have all these little words like inside and outside to tell you where they go when we start writing symbolic representation. Okay, so the reason why I write the word inside is because it's inside the parentheses. And the reason why I write the word outside above words and eventually above or below numbers is because it's going to be written outside of the parentheses when I start writing symbolic notation. Okay, or symbolic representation, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so just remember, yeah, why do we get something on the inside? Because they represent M. And in this problem, M represents the number of minutes we advertise. And why does something get written outside? And it's written outside because it's going to affect revenue, which is the money we make after we do our advertising. Okay, so make sure you understand the difference between what gets written inside the parentheses versus what gets written outside the parentheses. So anything inside the parentheses is gonna relate to minutes, or changing the amount of minutes that we advertise. Yeah, and whatever is written outside is gonna be connected to revenue, or the money we make from doing the advertising. Okay, so when I read problem one, I know problem one's answer is already on there, but I want to explain how they get problem number one by dissecting what they give you, which is pretty much this sentence: the revenue we receive from 3 minutes. Yeah, so 3 is going to connect with the word minutes, so it's telling me how much minutes I'm advertising, so I'm going to call 3. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to call it, but I'm going to categorize it as inside the parentheses. Yeah, so 3 minutes of advertising is $500 more than. So $500, that's not a minute value. That's a revenue value. So I'm going to put the word outside right underneath the number 500. Okay, so 500 more than, so I know that we're going to probably be adding. So let's make sure this is a pen. Usually I'm in the pointer mode, but this is a pen, so I'm going to be adding 500. So 500 more than the revenue we receive if we only advertise for 2 minutes. So 2 connects to minutes. That's going to be something on the inside. So when I look at my final answer, right, R of 3, or R parentheses 3, right, 3 is inside the parentheses because it belongs to minutes. And then equals R of 2. 2 is also a minute value, so we're going to put that inside the parentheses and connect it to R. Okay, so when you see R parentheses 3, R parentheses 2. Okay, basically it's saying the money we make when I advertise for 3 minutes. And R parentheses 2 means the money we make when I advertise for 2 minutes. So money and revenue, they're kind of used interchangeably because revenue is basically how much money you make. Okay, so the money I make when I advertise for 3 minutes, the money I make when I advertise for 2 minutes. Okay, and the plus 500, why is that not inside the parentheses? Because remember I said the only things that go in the parentheses are things that affect minutes. Anything that affects dollar amounts or money we made or revenue, that's going to go outside the parentheses. So that's why we put the plus 500 outside the parentheses, because it's going to affect money or revenue. Okay? All right, so that's how they got these numbers in these particular spots. And I'll explain why or how to get each number in its place within the equation. Like, why is 500 connected to R of 2? How come 500 is not connected to R of 3? So I'll explain that in the next problem. But for this first problem, I just want to make sure you understand the difference between inside versus outside. When do we put numbers inside versus when do we put numbers outside? Okay, so that's what I want you to take away from this first problem. Okay. And let's look at number 2. Okay, so number 2, I'm going to break it down the exact same way. Right? Notice how your answer is not written. Yeah, it's not written for you previously. Yeah, so we're going to have to create this one by one. Okay, so the revenue from 5 minutes. So 5 is a number that connects to minutes. So we're going to put that inside the parentheses. Of advertising is only $100 more than, so $100, right? That's a dollar amount. That's not a minute amount. So we're gonna connect that with outside the parentheses, and we're gonna add 100 because this is more than. So we're gonna know it. We're gonna connect it with adding 100. If we advertise for 4 minutes, yeah. So 4 is a minute value, so that's gonna go inside. Okay, so here's the first things you want to write when you write your symbolic representation. You wanna write your revenue statement. So the revenue or money I make when I advertise for 5 minutes. So that's going to be R parentheses 5. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do. You want to write that, right? R parentheses whatever your number is. Okay, and since we have another number that is connecting to minutes, which is 4, we're going to write this exact same statement again. So R parentheses, not 5 this time, but 4. Okay? So these are the two scenarios that we're comparing. R of 5 versus R of 3. I'm sorry, R of 4. So the amount of money I make when I advertise for 5 minutes versus the money I make when I advertise for 4 minutes. Okay, and you might be thinking, why does he say explain seesaw on this slide? Okay, so hopefully there's still seesaws in the parks that you guys may have gone to when you were a little kid, yeah? But I've been noticing that seesaws have been disappearing from parks. So eventually this example that I give is not going to be understandable with the next generation of kids, because you're going to be like, what is a seesaw? I have no idea what that is, yeah? But I think you guys are young enough where you guys still had seesaws in the parks that you went to. So if you don't remember what a seesaw is, it's basically that board, that long board, yeah? That you have two people sitting on either side, and you have a little pole in the middle. I'm going to draw a little triangle, yeah? And basically when you have two people sitting on either end, when you have somebody sitting here and you have somebody sitting here, the seesaw goes up and down, up and down, up and down on either side. Yeah? So if you're on the heavier side, then the seesaw is going to lean towards your side. So you're going to pretty much be on the ground, and the lighter person is going to be up in the air. So when I was with my son back in the day when he was younger, I would always be the one on the ground, and he would always be the one in the air, because obviously I'm heavier than him. Yeah, especially when he's only 6 years old. Okay, so that's a seesaw, right? It's gonna tilt one way or the other based on who's heavier versus who's lighter. Okay, so notice how we have R of 5 versus R of 4, and R stands for the money we make. So which scenario makes more money? 5 minutes of advertising or 4 minutes of advertising? Which is going to make us more money? Because whatever side makes us more money, that's the side the seesaw is going to tilt to. Okay, so is the seesaw going to tilt this way? Yeah, where the left side is heavier than the right side? Or is the seesaw going to tilt this way, where the right side is heavier than the left side? So which is going to make more money? Is advertising for 4 minutes going to make more money, or is advertising for 5 minutes going to make more money? Okay, and hopefully you say 5 minutes makes more money. So the seesaw is going to tilt this way. Yeah. So here's what you got to do. You're going to use the 100 to balance this seesaw. Yeah, so that it's even. where the two sides are exactly the same height off the ground. Okay, so that's what the 100 is gonna, that's what his role is. The 100 is gonna balance this thing out. So if I give 100 to the heavier side, does the seesaw balance out? So like if I go plus 100, so if I just do this, plus 100 on this side, does my seesaw balance? No, I just made the heavier side even heavier. So do I want to do that? No, I don't want to do that because, like I said, my job is to balance out the seesaw, and I just made the heavier side even heavier. Okay, so which side should I put plus 100 so that I can balance this thing out? And hopefully you say put it on the lighter side. And if I put plus 100 on the lighter side, then this seesaw is going to balance out. It's going to go back and be level. Okay, so let me erase this picture of the seesaw because it's no longer tilting to the left. It's now exactly even. So that's where I'm going to put the equal sign, right in the middle. Yeah. So there you go. There's your answer. Okay, but is adding 100 the only way to make this seesaw balance out? Is there another scenario? Is there another symbolic representation that I could have written to balance this seesaw where I made the heavier side lighter? Okay, I kind of gave you a hint. How can I make the heavier side lighter through the use of 100? Okay, in this first answer, I made the lighter side heavier by adding 100. But is there another symbolic representation that I could have written where I make the heavier side lighter? So we're going to write out the exact same numbers in the start, right? R of 5 versus R of 4. And I want them to balance out. I want them to be equal to each other. So how can I make the heavier side, which is R of 5, how can I make him lighter? I don't want to add 500 because we already tried that. If I add 500, we're just going to make the heavier side heavier. So what should I do instead of adding? And if you say subtracting, then good job. That's how we make it lighter. So subtract 100 from the heavier side and we just made it lighter. So you can use either answer. You can use this blue answer on the left side. You can use the red answer on the right side. It doesn't matter. Okay? I don't know if your teacher that you have is going to want you to write the plus 100 scenario. Yeah, because they might want you to translate it pretty much as you see it, which says more than. So they might want you to do plus 100. Yeah? But if it were up to me, I would accept both answers because it basically shows that you understand what the problem says and what are the parameters, what are the requirements, and yeah, you made an equation that works based on the information you got. So if it was me, I would accept both. But I'm not your teacher if you're watching this video from another class, so you just gotta go with what your teacher accepts. Okay? And whatever they accept, just don't argue, just accept it because they're the teacher. Okay? Alright. Okay, let's look at number 3. So let's see, what do we have inside? Well, we have 5 minutes, so that's on the inside. We have double, and that doesn't seem like it's affecting any kind of a minute value, so we're going to call that outside. And we have 3, and that corresponds to 3 minutes, so that's going to be on the inside. So let's map out our scenario. We have R of 5 versus R of 3. Okay, so if this is a seesaw, which way is it tilting? Is it tilting heavier side on the left? Yeah, or is it tilting heavier side on the right? Which way is this seesaw tilting? Which part of the seesaw is on the ground because it's heavier? Advertising for 5 minutes or advertising for 3 minutes? Okay, and hopefully you say, yeah, I think 5 minutes makes us more money, so the seesaw is going to be tilting left side on the ground, which is right there. Okay, so how do I balance this out? Well, I can do one of two things. I can either make the right side heavier, or I can make the left side lighter. Okay, but we got to remember, what's my balancing number? Yeah, you're probably going to say, oh, I don't see a number. But I do see a word called double. And when you see a word called double, you hopefully know that it implies multiplication by 2. Okay, so hopefully, okay, well, if you didn't know, then now you know. Double is going to imply multiply by 2. Yeah, you're going to multiply by 2. So which side should I multiply by 2 so this seesaw balances out? If I multiply by 2 here, yeah, just think, when I multiply by 2, doesn't numbers get bigger? So didn't I just make the heavier side even heavier? So is that the right choice, to put it as 2 on the left side? No, that was the bad choice. That was a wrong move. You should not have put multiply by 2 on the left side. You got to go multiply by 2 on the right side. so that I make the lighter side heavier. And I just stick an equal sign in between my two scenarios, and we got our first answer. Okay, so I need more room because I want you to map out the other answer where I don't multiply by 2 to make it balance out. Yeah, where I don't make the lighter side heavier. What can I do to make the heavier side lighter through the use of the word double? Okay, we already know we can't multiply the left side by 2 because multiplying the left side by 2 is going to make it even heavier. So what's the opposite of doubling? Yeah, what's the opposite of doubling? And yeah, I'll give you some time to think. So I'm gonna write out the preliminary stuff. R of 5 versus R of 3. And I know I have to make these two sides equal, but I can't use times by 2. Yeah, because that scenario has already been played out. We times by 2 on the right side, we're good to go. Okay, but what is the other scenario where I don't double to make the lighter side heavier? What is the scenario where I want to make the heavier side lighter? How can I use the word double to make the heavier side lighter? And this is where hopefully you think of this scenario where I cut it in half. Right? If I cut the heavier side in half, then it'll balance out. Okay, and that's how you can use the word double to get two potential answers that work. Okay, and like I said, your teacher's going to give you the clue as far as which answer they'll accept. Do they want you to put times by 2, or will they also accept divide by 2? Because like I said, if they want you to go pretty much how it's worded, then double means multiply by 2. If they go by, do you understand what this is telling you? And divide by 2 is perfectly fine, then that's good to go too. For my kids, you can write either answer. I don't really care. They both mean the same thing. Okay? I think the red one's actually harder because you're writing a scenario that's actually not written in the problem. You're kind of taking a deeper level of understanding where, yeah, it says double, but I'm going to cut it in half instead. Yeah? Or, yeah, it says add 100, but I'm going to subtract 100 instead. So I think the red answer is a little bit harder to get, so if it was me, I'm just going to accept either one. But like I said, it's up to your teacher. Okay? And don't argue when they tell you that they only want the blue answer. Yeah, just say, okay, that's cool. All right? Okay, next slide. Okay, so next one is actually written for us because it's not just putting numbers like 3 versus 5 as far as advertising minutes inside the parentheses. It's actually putting letters. Okay, so there's a lot more stuff that you have to understand, and it's going to get a little bit more confusing when you're not just dealing with numbers inside the parentheses. Okay, so the first thing you want to realize is when you're dealing with letters in the parentheses, you got to make sure you always have R of M, or the single letter all by itself is one of your scenarios. Okay, because when we have these sentences, it's going to always describe how the minute value or the number inside the parentheses, how it's going to change. And when you describe how it's going to change, you're always going to compare it to not changing at all. Okay, so in this particular scenario, we're going to increase the number of minutes by 1. So we're going to compare minutes increasing by 1 versus minutes not changing at all. So basically staying M. So that's going to be your two scenarios. And that's what a lot of kids don't understand when they do these problems, that they can figure out the M plus 1 part because it says increase by 1, but they don't know what to compare it to. Okay, so you got to remember, when you start mapping out these scenarios, it's always going to be, right, it's going to describe how you're changing your letter, whether you're going to be increasing by 1, increasing by 2, decreasing by 5. They're always going to describe how you're going to change M. Okay, and then on the other side of the equal sign, you're going to compare it to not changing it at all, just leaving it as regular plain old M. Okay, so that's why I put inside next to the word increase, inside by the words by 1. So that's where you get the M plus 1, because you're going to increase the number of minutes M by 1, so M plus 1. And then we're going to compare it to not changing M at all, so just regular plain old R of M. And then why does it say plus 200 on the outside? Well, 200 must not be a minute value because that's why it's on the outside. And we know that 200 is going to balance out. It's going to make the lighter side heavier. Yeah, so why do we know we're going to add to the 200? Why not multiply by 200? What do we see in the sentence that implies adding 200? Well, we see the word increased. Yeah, so the word increases or increased, yeah, is going to make it say, basically, add 200. Okay, if you wanted to do the harder version of this answer, where you don't add 200, you could do this also. Okay, am I in pen mode? Yeah, I think I am. So if you want to make the harder version of this answer, so r of m plus 1 versus r of m, okay? And then we're not going to add 200 to make the lighter side heavier. We're going to subtract 200 to make the heavier side lighter. Okay, you can put either answer, it doesn't matter to me. All right? Okay, next problem. Okay, so what do we have here? We have double the amount of minutes. So double implies multiply by 2. So we're going to multiply 2 times m. And that's going to be our first scenario. Let me go back to blue. So r of 2m. Okay, remember I said we're always going to describe what's going to change with the letter. And we're always going to compare it to the letter not changing at all. So r of m. So that's your two scenarios. Compare doubling the amount of minutes we advertise to not doubling at all, doing nothing to m. Okay, and then it says the revenue will triple. So just like double implies multiply by 2, triple implies multiply by 3. So when I want to balance this out, which side do I want to multiply by 3? The heavier side, which is on the left, or the lighter side, which is on the right? Which side do I want to triple? And why is the left side heavier anyway? Yeah, well, if you double the amount of minutes you advertise, your product is gonna become more popular. It's gonna get more well known. So that's why you're gonna get more money, because people are gonna know about it and more people are gonna buy it. So you're gonna make more money. So that's why doubling the number of minutes you advertise by is gonna have a bigger R value, the money you make value. Okay, so if I want to balance it out via multiplying by 3, I gotta times the lighter side by 3. So I put the 3 over there. Okay, if I want to write the other version of this answer, I'll still map out the exact same R value, so R of 2m versus R of m. And to balance it out, I'm not going to multiply by 3, but I'm going to divide by 3. So if you want to make the other version of that exact same answer, you can do that part in red. Okay? All right, next problem. Next problem I actually wrote out. Yeah? Because actually it details a scenario that's actually kind of difficult. So a lot of kids have trouble with this scenario. So we see that double m scenario still yet, right? So r of 2m. And we're going to compare it to not doubling it all. We're going to just leave plain old m. But then it says our revenue is going to increase by 50%. So there's where the difference is. We never had this increase by 50% come up before. Yeah, and you're going to get these on problems in the next couple of slides. So make sure you pay attention to this problem really carefully. So increase by 50%. Yeah, so increase is going to imply adding by 50%. So we're going to turn 50% into a decimal. Yeah, so 50% as a decimal is 0.5. Yeah, because 50% is like half, right? So half is like 0.5. Okay, so increase by 50% turns into 0.5 as a decimal, and half of R of m. Yeah, so when we increase by 50%, we're going to increase by the amount that we make when we just advertise for our normal amount of minutes. So that's basically m. Okay, so if you were to write it out exactly as the sentence says, you're going to add 0.5 times R of m. You could also write it like this. Double the minutes, right, is 1.5 times R of m. Okay, so how did I get 1.5? Well, if I look at my previous answer, right, aren't these two things on the right-hand side like terms, where they have a number in the front? This guy has 1, this guy has positive 0.5, so they both have numbers in the front. And you can think of R parentheses m as the variable. Yeah, so these guys are basically like terms because they have the exact same letters and parentheses and m, right? They both have the exact same, I guess, variable attached to the 1 and the 0.5. So they're like terms basically. So 0.5 plus 1 is 1.5. Okay, so for kids to eventually get this correct, you might have to do the equation twice. First, you get the one on the left, where you actually write it out exactly how the equation maps it out, right? Increase by 50%. Yeah, so 0.5 times R of m. And then you just combine like terms. You go 1 plus 0.5 and you get 1.5. Okay, so I want to see this answer right here, the one on the right. So I actually shouldn't have written or. Yeah, I should have just erased the word or and just boxed this instead, because I want to see the one on the right. Yeah. So in the beginning, I might accept this left side answer. In the beginning, when you're just getting your feet wet, you're kind of getting the basic understanding of how this all works. But eventually, I want you guys to graduate to this right hand side answer, where you don't write it in two separate things like this. Yeah, you actually combine your like terms and you actually write your final answer like that. So like I said, in the beginning, I probably will accept this answer, but eventually I'm going to say, you know what, I gave you enough time for transition and you need to write this second answer instead. Okay, but for now, I'll accept both, I guess. Yeah, I'll be nice. Okay, all right, so let's look at number 7. Yeah, so number 7 says, okay, we're going to be doing something funky to the letter M. We're going to increase the number of minutes by 10. Okay, so that's going to be one of our scenarios. So R of M plus 10, so increased by 10. And then, like I said, right, we're always going to describe what we're going to do to one of our letters, and the other letter is going to be unchanged. So R of M. So which side do you think the seesaw is tilting to? Is the seesaw tilting left or right? Now, which side is going to make more money? Advertising by 10 more minutes or advertising by pretty much no change? Well, hopefully you say advertising by 10 minutes. So my seesaw is going to tilt towards the left. So the left side is going to be touching the ground. So I either got to make the right side heavier or I got to make the left side lighter. So what's my number that's going to balance out this seesaw? So it's just double. My revenue will double. Okay, so that's a word we've seen many times. So that basically means times by 2. So hopefully you guys remember from the previous problems that when I multiply by 2, I want to multiply the lighter side by 2. And the lighter side is the left side. So multiply by 2 there. And then to balance it out, put the equal sign right smack dab in the middle and good to go. Okay, so there's your answer. If I wanted to write the answer as the division way that I write in red usually, you're going to do this, right? You're still going to have your exact same R of M plus 10. You're still going to have your R of M, right? That's going to be exactly the same, equal sign in the middle, but this doesn't balance out just yet because I want to divide the heavier side by 2 to make it lighter. So if I make the heavier side lighter, then it'll balance out. Okay, so this one I'll accept either one. Yeah, the number 6, like I said earlier, yeah, for now I'll accept this 1 times R of M plus 0.5 times R of M. I'll accept that for now, but eventually you're going to have to put this right side answer. Okay, but you need to know this concept of how these two things are interchangeable for the rest of this lesson, because knowing that these two things can be interchangeable is going to be kind of important to get strategy for some of the upcoming problems to be solved. Okay, so know that these two things are interchangeable and how to create one from the other when you see them. Okay, because that's going to be a key strategy when we look at other problems that are going to come up in the next couple of slides. Okay, so now we're going to reverse the process. They're going to actually give us the symbolic representation or the symbolic notation or function notation, if you want to call it that also, and we're going to write the words that describe this scenario. Okay, so I always look at this as like translation. Okay, we're learning how to write math in the first couple of problems. So we're given the English language words, the description in English, and we're writing it as a math language. And that's kind of like what we did in the first 7 problems. Okay, so we're translating it into math. Yeah, from English to math. Now we're doing the exact opposite. We're given the math and we want to translate it into English. So for those of you guys that take foreign language, you guys might have a little advantage because you guys have been translating throughout your years of learning a foreign language, right? From whatever language you're studying to English, and from English to that language that you're studying. Okay, so usually students that are taking foreign language, they kind of have a little bit of an edge because they know how this works. They know the thought process behind translating. Okay, so we're given the math and we're going to translate it into English. So we kind of see some of the signs already. We see R of 5, so that means the money we make when we advertise for 5 minutes. We see R of 3, the money we make when we advertise for 3 minutes. And we see our balancing number, the plus 120, the number that's going to make the lighter side heavier. So we're going to note, or we're going to say some kind of wording where it says increase by $120. So we have all the pieces, but we just have to make sure we write it in a way that makes sense, right? The money we make when we advertise for 5 minutes, the money we make when we advertise for 3 minutes, and increase by $120. Okay, so we have the pieces, we have the rough translation as far as what we're supposed to write. So how do we put that together into a sentence that kind of makes sense? Well, here's what I wrote. Okay, so the revenue from 5 minutes of advertising is $120 more than the revenue from 3 minutes of advertising. Okay, so that's how you translate from math to English. Yeah, and that's why it's important to know that whatever's inside the parentheses corresponds to minutes, and whatever's outside the parentheses corresponds to revenue or money we make. Okay, and if you can understand that, then that's kind of key in translating it back into English, because you understand what the numbers represent, right? 5 minutes, 3 minutes, $120. Okay, you can identify what the role of those numbers are, and that's kind of important. All right, so let's look at the next problem. Okay, so we see R of 6, so that's the revenue we make, or the money we make when we advertise for 6 minutes. We see R of 5, so that's the money we make when we advertise for 5 minutes. And we see a number outside the parentheses, so that means it's a dollar value. Yeah, and that's going to be our balancing number. It's going to be what makes R of 5 a little bit heavier, so it balances out. Okay, so let's see what we roll for this one. So the revenue from 6 minutes of advertising is $200 more than the revenue from 5 minutes of advertising. So it's pretty much the exact same thing as the one before it. Yeah, the previous problem is pretty much the exact same thing, just different numbers for minutes and different numbers for more than increase. Okay, all right, so let's look at number 10. Okay, so R of 10, so that's the money we make from 10 minutes of advertising. R of 6, the money we make from advertising for 6 minutes. Ooh, okay, and we don't have a plus number like we did in the previous two problems. We have times by 3. Okay, so you got to remember, whenever we multiplied one of the sides by a number, right, I think we did a scenario where it doubled, so we multiplied by 2, and I think we also did a scenario where we multiplied by 3. And if you can remember what was the wording they used when we multiply by 3, then you actually be able to write this in English, right? And multiplying by 3 corresponds to triple. Okay, so let's see what the wording is when I put this all together. Okay, so the revenue from 10 minutes of advertising is triple than what we would receive from 6 minutes of advertising. I guess I could have worded that a little bit better grammatically. Okay? The revenue from 10 minutes of advertising is triple that of what we would receive. Okay, I guess I should have written is triple that of what we would receive from 6 minutes of advertising. So I should have changed the wording of the sentence. Yeah, I guess I didn't read it out loud. When I read it out loud just now, it sounded kind of strange. So yeah, just change it to what I said just now, right? Is triple that of what we would receive from 6 minutes of advertising. Sorry about that. Okay, so why is there another box over here? So let's see what's underneath this other box. I must have did something pretty important to put another box here. So it must relate to number 10. So let's see what I wrote. Okay, so if the problem was written as R of 10 is equal to 1 times R of 6 plus 2 times R of 6. Okay, so basically these guys are like terms, right? They both have R of 6 attached to it. So that's why 1 plus 2 makes 3. So if I wrote it like this, yeah, if the problem was written like this, then how does my translation change? Well, I wouldn't use the word triple because I'm not timesing by 3. Okay, but it still is the same exact, I guess, function notation, because when I add these like terms, they make 3 times R of 6. Yeah, but if I write it like this, how does that change the translation? Yeah, well, basically I still advertise for 10 minutes, I still advertise for 6 minutes, but because I have plus 2 times R of 6, it's going to be 200% more than the revenue from 6 minutes of advertising. So, or increase by 200%, yeah, in revenue. So that's the difference I kind of wanted to make sure you guys understand, that you can actually have 2 ways of writing this problem with 3 times R of 6 or the way in red. And you're going to have 2 different translations. Yeah, so please make sure you understand that difference, because like I said, right, being able to convert this problem 10 in its original form to problem 10 in this different form, yeah, is going to be key to understanding some of the problems that are going to come up pretty soon, like some of the ones in your homework assignment as well. Yeah, so understand that these two guys are interchangeable. They're going to produce answers that are a little bit different, but ultimately they are mapping out the same information. Yeah, they eventually lead to the same destination. Okay, so that might have gotten confusing, so good, like I said, good thing this is a video. Just hit pause, just hit rewind. Yeah, this is on YouTube, so just double tap the left side of the screen so you can rewind 10 seconds, and you can rewind parts of this video pretty easily. Okay, All right, and let's look at number 11. Okay, so what do we have here? So R of 1.5m equals 2 times R of m. So what's basically changing is my minute value is changing. Okay, so I wrote a little bit of advice for this problem, yeah, where I broke apart the 1.5m as 1m plus 0.5m. So we're going to increase the amount of minutes that I advertise, basically. Yeah, and since I have 0.5, I'm going to be writing something like 50%. Okay, so R of 1m plus 0.5m is going to be basically increasing the number of minutes by 50%. That's the wording I'm going to use for this left side. And then the 2 times R of m, that's going to be using the word double. Yeah, so that's the kind of wording you want to see. So a lot of kids, when they do problem 11, they just say, I'm going to increase the number of minutes I advertise by 1.5. And I guess technically that's correct, but that's not the deeper level understanding that we want to make sure you understand. Where, how do you get to 1.5? Well, you got there because you advertised by 50% more. Okay, so that's what we want to get to. Yeah, so don't just translate this problem as you're going to advertise by 1.5 times more. Okay, technically, yeah, like I said, technically that's correct, but we don't want that answer. We want to see this answer instead for number 11. Okay, so if we increase the number of minutes we advertise by 50%, then we will double our revenue. Okay, that's the more rigorous answer that we're striving for. Okay, so strive for that level of understanding. All right. In the beginning, yeah, maybe you can say just increase your number of minutes by 1.5. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, but eventually I'm gonna be like, no, I don't want that answer anymore. I want the more rigorous answer. Okay, the one that says increase the number of minutes we advertise by 50%. Where you think of this problem, right? R of 1.5m, you think of it as 1m plus 0.5m. Okay, that's like I said, so that's why I gave you guys those other scenarios in the previous slides, right? Where you break up the 1 plus 2, right? In like a couple problems ago, where 200% more. Yeah, that's why I did that, because I wanted to get your brain into the right frame of mind where this makes more sense. So like I said again, good thing this is a video. If you want to connect this to the problems that we had, where we actually added, right, 0.5 or added 2, right, then you can just rewind to those problems and you guys can just rewrite, just re-listen to that explanation and hopefully watch it enough times so that it makes more sense. Okay, number 12. Okay, so we're increasing our minutes that we advertise by 5, and because we did that, our revenue increased by $1,000. So this one should be a little bit easier and more straightforward than the previous ones we just came from, where we had percentages. Yeah, so these are always going to be easier in general. Okay, so if we increase the number of minutes we advertise by 5 minutes, then our revenue will increase by $1,000. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, all right, so let's look at our homework. Okay, so you have, I think you have 4 problems for homework, and no advice for number 1 and 2. That's pretty much just the answers that are underneath the box. I'm not going to show you guys the answers. Okay, and for number 3, I give you some advice. So the problem is originally written as S of 12 equals 1.6 times S of 2. So look at how I rewrote the original problem. I still have the S of 12, but on the right side I have 1 times S of 2 plus 0.6 times S of 2. Okay, so this is a huge hint as far as how I want you to translate this problem. Okay, so please don't just take the easy way out and say my revenue increased by 1.6 times. That's the easy way out. Don't do that. Okay, if you really want to get the better learning and better understanding, you're not going to write the translation as you're going to have 1.6 times more annual salary. Okay, you want to translate it to this one in blue and translate from blue, not from the original problem. Translate from the blue, and you'll get the answer more along the lines of what we want to see for this problem. Okay, so don't take the easy way out, trust me. Because when I start forcing you guys to actually write the answer with the blue equation in mind, then all the kids that didn't want to make that transition and learn it the right way from the beginning are going to be like, whoa, what's going on? I'm totally confused. Where are you getting this from? Okay, so learn it the right way from the beginning, please. All right, so good luck on this assignment, and yeah, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.